Imagine putting up 40 or even 50 points on nearly a nightly basis, having one of the greatest primes of all time, dominating the scoreboard, and yet your team is still losing. This isn't just a hypothetical. This is reality for Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. Several people have already made videos pointing this out, but I want to give a unique perspective. In so many of these videos, we're told that we have never seen numbers like Jokic, or failures like the Nuggets. Except, we have. That image of Jokic you pictured? Now picture a player who doesn't just score a 56-point career high, but scores 50 points per game for an entire season, and still finds himself on the losing end more often than not. Sounds unbelievable, right? Well, that player has already existed. Allow me to introduce you to the phenomenon known as the Wilt Chamberlain curse. Wilt Chamberlain, one of the greatest players in NBA history, shattered records and redefined the game with his scoring prowess. In the 1961 and 1962 season, Chamberlain averaged an astonishing 50.4 points per game, a feat unmatched in the years of basketball. Despite his otherworldly stats, Chamberlain's team often fell short of ultimate glory, mirroring the current struggle of Jokic. Let's dive into the parallels between Jokic and Chamberlain, exploring how two of the most dominant players in NBA history can put up mind-boggling numbers and still face the sting of defeat. By dissecting the factors contributing to this modern-day Wilt Chamberlain curse, from team dynamics, management decisions, and the relentless competition in the league, it becomes clear how such greatness can coexist with persistent disappointment. Without translating those numbers into consistent team victories. Wilt Chamberlain, one of the NBA's most dominant figures, often found himself on the losing end despite his legendary performances. If this at all seems familiar to some of you, it's because it might be at first glance. Rusty Buckets recently released a video called the Wilt Chamberlain Paradox, in which Rusty Buckets dives into the paradox of Wilt Chamberlain being damned if he does, damned if he doesn't, in which, when Wilt Chamberlain was putting up these legendary numbers, his team was losing. Yet whenever he took a diminished role, his team was winning, and he still received the same criticism because he fell off. While this video does take some points from that Rusty Buckets video, this is addressing a separate issue that is semi-related to that. The Wilt Chamberlain curse is something that consists of a player being the number one on a team, and then the team becomes too reliant on them. Their usage is extraordinarily high, racking in some of the top usage percentages ever in the history of the league. And because of that, the team is failing, because they are making it solely that player's responsibility to win. This curse seems to have been resurfacing with Nikola Jokic, whose brilliance on the court mirrors Chamberlain's struggles. Over the years, this curse has taken many forms that have been further pushed by the media, but not nearly to the extent that we're seeing with Jokic and the Nuggets when looking at the numbers, which we'll dive into. For instance, you had Giannis in 2021 that nearly single-handedly carried the Bucks to a championship, although with the help of Chris Middleton and Jrue Holiday. Luka, for many years, has been struggling on the Mavs, trying to carry them before the additions of Kyrie and Klay Thompson. And then, of course, you have the debate that's been going on for decades that LeBron has always needed more helps on his team. Now, the clear example is Jokic, whose staggering numbers even surpass those of his predecessors or the players I mentioned, and yet still the Nuggets struggle to find consistent success. Let's explore the origins and implications of the Wilt Chamberlain curse and how it relates to Jokic's situation with the Denver Nuggets. To truly understand the gravity of Nikola Jokic's dilemma, we first have to do the obvious and dive in to his statistical achievements. Jokic's performance this season have been nothing short of phenomenal, with regular 40 to 50 point games, triple doubles, and a significant impact on both ends of the floor. Breaking down Jokic numbers from basic stats to advanced metrics showcases why he's considered one of the best players in the league today. In just the past few nights, Jokic has managed to put up 48 points, only to follow it up with a career-high 56, all culminating in him averaging 31.5 points per game. This isn't just high for the season, it's in the top 50 all-time, among the likes of Luka Doncic, James Harden's Rocket years, Kobe Bryant, and of course, Michael Jordan and Wilt Chamberlain. But on top of all that, he's also averaging 1.8 steals, 9.8 assists, and 13.3 rebounds. That means that Jokic is just 0.2 assists away from averaging a triple-double season as a center. Let me remind you that there have only been 2 other players that have averaged a triple-double for a season. Russell Westbrook 4 times, and Oscar Robertson once. And those are 2 of some of the best point guards in NBA history. Jokic is nearly doing it again as a center. Jokic's ability to impact the game across multiple statistical categories, scoring, rebounding, and playmaking, make him indispensable to the Nuggets. Except, that's exactly the problem. Drawing parallels between Nikola Jokic and Wilt Chamberlain may seem ambitious, but the numbers tell a compelling story. Just looking at pure points, Wilt's 50.4 points per game in the 1961 to 1962 season set an almost unreachable benchmark. Of course, Wilt's numbers are staggeringly higher on offense, with him being known as arguably one of the best offensive players in the game, taking the top 5 spots for most points per game in a season alone, with his classic 50 points per game and the famous 100-point game. Yet, Jokic's consistent high-scoring games bring to mind Wilt Chamberlain. While these players still seem an insurmountable distance apart individually, it's when we start looking at it in the context of the team that their stories begin to blend. To start, of course, Wilt was mainly a score-first player, while Jokic does it all, again averaging nearly a triple-double. On top of that, Jokic's player efficiency rating for a single season is astronomical, with his 32.85 in the 2021 to 2022 season and 32.52 in this season, nearing the top of the charts, surpassing even Wilt's best of 32.08 in 1961 to 1962. Jokic also stands out in the plus-minus, a stat that was not recorded in Wilt's era, but nevertheless illuminating. Jokic boasts the highest single-season box plus-minus of 13.72, outshining legends like Michael Jordan and even LeBron. If you thought it was impressive that Jokic did it for those individual seasons, he's actually been doing it his entire career. Jokic appears 5 more times in the top 10 of box plus-minus single season, and the highest for a career. Same goes for player efficiency rating, appearing 6 times in the top 25, totaling to number 1 career-wise. In terms of win shares per 48 minutes, Jokic ranks 15th for a single season, behind legends like LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Hakeem, Kareem, and Wilt. For his career, Jokic sits at 3rd, with a win-loss per 48 of .2405, while Wilt ranks much lower at 9th with only .1998. Team dynamics play a crucial role in a player's success. Wilt Chamberlain's time with the Philadelphia 76ers was marked by both incredible highs and frustrating lows. Similarly, Jokic's tenure with the Denver Nuggets has been a mix of personal triumphs and team struggle. Comparing the supporting cast, coaching decisions, and management moves that defined Chamberlain's 76ers and Jokic's Nuggets provide context for their individual and team success. To quote Clutch Points, "This Nuggets team looks like a shell of themselves, even though most of their starters were on the roster for their championship-winning season." For weeks now, the Nuggets have looked tired and unmotivated when they got on the court. Even though they are just a squeak above a 500 record, they've often looked a step too behind whatever team they faced. Again, Rusty Buckets also addressed this issue in the Wilt Chamberlain Paradox video.
I brought up usage percentage earlier, but I never really explained it, but to put it simply, it is, quote, an estimate of the percentage of teams' plays used by a player while he was on the floor, unquote. Here's the formula if you're a math nerd, but when you take a look at the all-time leaders in usage, you have to scroll for quite a while before you see the name of a player who won a title in that season.
Michael Jordan in 1993 ranked 46th all-time in usage. Then you scroll down further until you see, yet again, MJ, this time in 1998 ranked 62nd, then MJ in 1996 at 78th all-time, in 97 he's 82nd, then MJ again in 91 ranked 97th, and for the first player not named MJ to win a title with super high usage, you have Giannis in 2021 ranked 117th.
If you have a player with a top 100 usage rate of all time on your roster, unless his name is Michael Jordan, you will not win a championship. You might go to the finals at best, but you will inevitably face a team that is more well-balanced that doesn't need to lean so heavily on one individual player.
If we want to take a few notes from Jimmy High Roller, let's go ahead and embrace that and go ahead and graph it. If we put player efficiency rating on the x-axis and win-loss on the y-axis, we're able to see if a player's contributions are actually equate to winning. The further left and down you are, the less efficient a player is and the less they are winning, aka a bad player on a bad team. If the player is more towards the top right, that means they are an incredible player that can carry a team to the finals. Top left means a team with a lot of wins, but the player is dragging the team down with terrible efficiency. Bottom right means that a player has incredible efficiency, but on a losing team. As you can see, this trend is in full effect with Wilt, with his 1961 to 1962 season resulting in a 31.62 player efficiency rating, but yet less than a 0.4 win-loss for his team. And as expected with the main point of this video, if we go even further right, we see Jokic with the top 2 player efficiency ratings for a season all time. And yet they result in only a 58.5 win-loss, and this season, at the time of recording, a 56 win-loss. Another great way to graph this is value over replacement versus win-loss. The higher your value over replacement is, the more valuable you are than whoever the bench player is your position. For example, on the 2014 Spurs, how valuable Tim Duncan is at power forward than Boris Diaw or Matt Bonner is his VOR. With Jokic, many have pointed out on the team level, when Jokic is on the floor, the Nuggets have a 125.8 offensive rating. When he is off the floor, they only have 96, which isn't just the lowest in the league, it's 7 whole points lower than the lowest in the league, right behind the team they just lost to, the Washington Wizards. Even if we go league-wide, the offensive rating of the league hasn't been that low in, well, actually, ever. At least not recorded, that is. The furthest offensive rating is recorded in 1972, and even then, it was 97. But on an individual level, let's take it back to VOR of a player. If we take the top 7 VOR seasons, at the highest spot, we have MJ, of course, in 1987. We also have, of course, LeBron in 2008. Then we have David Robinson's forgotten historic 1994 season, and a little to the right of that is MJ in 1990. But all the way over here is Jokic at number 7 in value over replacement all time, but only with a .58 win-loss in 2021 to 2022. Let's take it a step further and put one more nail in the coffin by again addressing the box plus minus. Box plus minus is a comprehensive stat that shows how much a player contributes to their team's performance. It accounts for everything a player does on the court, like scoring, defense, playmaking, and compares it to the league average. A higher box plus minus means the player is adding significant value to the team per 100 possessions. Basketball Reference is stated saying, quote, "To give a sense of scale, plus 10 is an all-time season. Think peak Jordan or LeBron. Plus 8 is an MVP season like Dirk or Shaq. Plus 6 is All-NBA, plus 4 is an All-Star, 2 is a good starter, 0 is a decent player or 6-man, and -2 or below is a bench player." For example, although box plus minus wasn't recorded during Wilt Chamberlain's era, it's clear his box plus minus would have been extraordinarily high given his scoring and rebounding dominance. Basketball Reference explains that box plus minus uses a player's box score information, position, and the team's overall performance to estimate the player's contribution in points above league average per 100 possessions played. So shout out to this dedicated Reddit user who attempted to estimate Wilt's point per 100 possessions before the stat was official. If we take that information, we can then calculate Wilt's box plus minus. If we take Wilt's best season at 40.5 points per 100 possessions, and consider the league's points per 100 possessions was around 22 in 1973, even if we take those numbers, he still scored 17 more points per 100 possessions than league average, yet his team's win-loss percentage was only .61, positioning him high in the individual performance but mid-tier in team success. The following season, despite 37.5 points per 100 possessions, his team win-loss percentage dropped to .38, once again highlighting this disparity. When it comes to Jokic, since we're already harnessing Jimmy High Roller's energy, I'll just let him take it from here.
Jordan or LeBron, and only 16 players in the history of the NBA have achieved this mark for a single season. Only 4 of these 16 players have achieved this mark in multiple seasons, those players being LeBron, Jordan, Giannis, and Chris Paul. Nikola Jokic has a box plus minus of 10 or more for his entire career, easily the highest BPM of any player in NBA history. In fact, there have only been 8 individual seasons where a player logged a box plus minus of at least 12. LeBron James did it once back in 2009, the most productive and high usage season of his entire career. Michael Jordan did it twice, once back in 1988, arguably the greatest individual season in NBA history and the best statistical season of his career, and again in 1991. This season, Nikola Jokic is on path to accomplishing this feat as well, joining an exclusive club with the 2 greatest players of all time. But he's been in the club for a while now, because he also did it last season, and the season before that. Oh, and the season before that, and the season before that one. 5 straight seasons of basketball, equal or better than the very best seasons of LeBron and Jordan. But you don't have to seek out metrics to see how Jokic has mastered the game every single time he steps on the court.
Except Jimmy just stated how good Jokic individually is doing. So again, let's take that and put it on the x-axis, and put win-loss percentage on the y-axis. We can then evaluate how a player's overall impact influences the team's success. In the top right, that would indicate players with high box plus minus who significantly elevate their teams with many wins. In the top left, we would have players who perform exceptionally well but are on teams with poor win-loss records. In the bottom right, we have players who have low individual impact but are on teams that perform really well. In the bottom left, we would then have players with low box plus minus on teams with poor win-loss records. If we just take the top percentage of box plus minus players, we have players like Kareem in the bottom left, a legendary player in 1977, but still had a less than 10 plus minus and a .55 win-loss team in order to create a bit of control for this graph. To the very far right, we have players like Curry on the 73-9 Warriors. A bit to the left of that is the next highest winning season, MJ in 95. To the left of that, we have LeBron again in 2008. Except the player we're focused on is much higher and yet so far to the left. Jokic appears in this graph with his extraordinary plus minus, as Jimmy said, 6 times. And all 6 of them are in the top left. Even further, if we examine these 3 dots alone, we are left with the biggest anomalies. MJ in 87 with nearly a 13 plus minus, but only a .61 win-loss team. And these 2 dots both are Jokic, with 13.72 in 2021 and a .585 team, and this season so far with a 13.31 box plus minus and only a .56 win-loss team. However, this problem isn't just unique to Wilt or Jokic. If we go back to the player efficiency rating graph, Giannis this season is already 6th for highest player efficiency rating in the season, and yet the Bucks are only .56. But they did also just win the Emirates Cup. Of course, part of this can be contributed to Doc Rivers and Darvin Ham, but a bigger problem is at hand. When looking at the usage ratings, several MVP candidates from just the past 5 years rank amongst the top. Giannis, Luka, Embiid, and when you look at the past 8 years, you get even more, with players like Westbrook and Harden. And yet Giannis and Jokic are the only 2 from that list with rings. Giannis was able to link up with Drew and Middleton before the team blew up, and Jokic had MPJ, Jamal Murray, and several others. Now, Luka is trying to accomplish the same by making it to the finals with Kyrie and Klay. And Harden and Westbrook are both past their primes, playing for several different teams. Team composition is everything. We even saw that in the graph already. Curry, furthest to the right on win-loss, had the 73-9 roster with KD, Klay, and more. And MJ had Pippen with his iconic Bulls lineup. Aside from just relying too much on one player, the Nuggets have seemingly only exacerbated the problem by going all in on him, which, as we just mathematically determined, is a losing strategy unless you're MJ. Michael Malone has even stated himself that, "I need Nikola Jokic, I need Jamal Murray. I need guys that have been here in the starting lineup to be vocal. We got a lot of film to watch. There was a lot of breakdowns in the communication and our game plan and our discipline tonight, and that can't be the case against a team like that." Ironically, this was said before the Wizards' loss. When things like this happen, Jokic is essentially playing a 1v5. During the Wizards game, Jokic put up his legendary 56 career high, but if you look closer, this career high from Jokic was nearly higher than the entire rest of the Nuggets roster put together that game. On top of that, the Nuggets defense is lacking, to say the least. Currently, the Nuggets are dead middle at 15 for defensive rating, and only 13 in net rating with a 2.5, leading to their .5 win-loss record. This means that even when Jokic scores 56 points the way he did, the Nuggets are allowing other teams to score about 53, making only 3 points of Jokic's career high actually meaning anything. This has been an issue for years as well, with people citing it all the way back in 2022, and also their loss to the Timberwolves having this as a heavy contributor. You can't win if you give up as many points as you make. And while this defense is a team issue, with Jokic averaging nearly 1 block and 2 steals a game, I'd say he is far less likely to be culpable than the others. Again, there is also his usage rating. This high usage also puts Jokic at risk of injury as well, which is a whole other topic and problem on his own. Your body is a machine, especially at that athletic level, needing consistent maintenance like oil changes, new tires, and so on. Constantly trying to make Jokic drive without pit stops only sets him up for failure. Again, we saw this a lot in the Timberwolves series, where Jokic had to play essentially all the minutes, and whenever he wanted to come out of the game, he couldn't, because then the Timberwolves would go on runs. But whenever Jokic was in the game, he was way too gassed to have the impact that he needed. So then what do you do with all of these problems? Well, you try and build some more around Jokic and take some load off of him. Hence SGA getting Chet and many other great Thunder players. Giannis getting Dame and keeping Middleton, Luka getting Kyrie and Klay, and so on. Except the Nuggets have failed drastically in that. Of course, many would point to players like MPJ and Jamal Murray as the supporting cast of the Nuggets. The clear move would be to try and keep the core that they had and maybe even acquire another big to help Jokic on the bench. And well, they did not do that. The Nuggets instead blew it up. Of the 18 players on the 2023 Nuggets championship team, only 7 still remain on the roster. If you take away the starters of people like Jokic, MPJ, Jamal Murray, and Aaron Gordon, you're left with only 3 that were part of that championship. Calvin Booth, who helped build the championship roster, now seems set on dismantling it. The glaring issue is Jamal Murray. He recently signed a 4-year, $200 million extension. For context, Giannis, who's closer to Jokic's level, only signed a 3-year, $180 million deal. Clearly, Murray isn't living up to his paycheck. His 3-point percentage dropped by nearly 10%, his points dropped by 3%, his win shares plummeted from 5.9 to 1.1, player efficiency dropped by 6, value over replacement went from 2.9 to 0.2, and worst of all, his box plus minus plummeted from 4.1 to negative 0.8. The issue is so obvious that even Jokic, who usually is reserved and quiet in terms of the media, spoke up about it. This has led to even more problems in the locker room, with others being outspoken about the failure of some teammates, and Malone speaking out against the GM. Besides being a fractured unit on the court, it seems everything is starting to fall apart off the court as well. Nuggets analyst Harrison Wind went on to say, quote, "There have been a lot of things bubbling under the surface for the past 2 seasons. It feels like it has all been building and it's coming to a head now. You've got the Jamal portion of it, you've got the Calvin Booth, Michael Malone conflict, which has been a real thing, and I've heard that it has bled over to the locker room. It's gotten to a place where players are torn in that two-sided thing. This has led several to also bring the Nuggets unexpectedly up in trade conversations, despite being champions only 2 years ago. Quote, they have until February to make some major moves. Perhaps GM Calvin Booth's inactivity on the trade front is a source of conflict between him and Michael Malone." Continuing on that, Open Court states, "The tension between Malone and Booth centers around differing philosophies on team management and player development. Booth, who took over as GM in 2023, has been pushing for more playing time for young reserves, emphasizing player development as a means to strengthen the bench. Malone, on the other hand, has shown a preference for relying on his trusted starters, especially in crucial moments. The public nature of this conflict has created a challenging environment for the players. According to sources within the organization, players are feeling torn between their loyalty to Malone and directives coming from Booth. This has led to a lack of cohesion and trust within the team, which is crucial for success in the highly competitive NBA. Despite all this though, it seems the GM has already given up and is focused on the future only. Quote, Nuggets general manager Calvin Booth was candid about his franchise goals when we met for lunch in Denver this offseason. Our guys are tired. It's going to be hard to repeat, Booth said. But if everything is optimized, we should win 3 or 4 more titles. He also stated that they would be fine without KCP, which obviously has not been the case. And the final nail in the coffin, I just want dudes that we try to develop, and it's sustainable. If it costs us the chance to win a championship this year, so be it. It's worth the investment. It's more about winning 3 out of 6, 3 out of 7, 4 out of 8 than it is about trying to get back to back. In other words, the man is a lunatic. He does not know how to be a GM. He basically literally said that it is more important to him to develop younger players despite having a championship level player than it is to try and win another championship. He essentially said that the roster was destined to blow up and lose in the playoffs, so as long as they change up the roster enough, they'll eventually figure it out. MPJ also unfortunately said a statement agreeing with the sentiment, saying, if we don't win this year, we all know they might have to break it up. This is not how championship rosters are made. You don't get a new young core and keep throwing it at the wall to see what sticks, or to win 4 of 8, as Booth stated. You had a winning roster, and instead of holding it together, you splurged on Murray while he's declining. Now the Nuggets have to work on developing their young talent instead of having veterans to win, with the exception of Westbrook, which was a clear signing of desperation after creating this problem and trying to put a band-aid over it. Denver Sports even puts it into the simplest of terms in just 1 to a few sentences, saying, Booth seemed to want to go young while building around Jokic, and Malone loves veteran players. To put simply, you can also use the words that everyone else uses, and what probably isn't a lot of the YouTube titles you've seen. The Nuggets are wasting Jokic's prime. Not only Jokic's prime, but one of the greatest basketball primes played. Or more accurately, instead of the Nuggets wasting his prime, Calvin Booth especially is wasting Jokic's prime by focusing on rebuilding despite having a winning championship 2 years prior. But hey, if Jokic leaves from frustration, at least he's sort of getting a head start in that direction. Now, when you make a video comparing players from 2 different eras, there are bound to be people that rely on their differences more than anything to say they simply are not comparable. Apples and oranges. This has been happening for decades, like with Jordan and LeBron, and they're only about a decade apart. Here, we're talking about a player from the 60s versus one from 2025, so it might seem even more extreme. But trust me, there's a method to the madness. There are multiple connecting factors between Wilt Chamberlain and Nikola Jokic that make this comparison relevant. I want to take this time to express some of the key differences while showcasing that they share more similarities than they may think and how it connects to the point of the video. Although we already dived into the similarities whenever it comes to things like player efficiency rating or usage, the biggest difference between Wilt Chamberlain and Nikola Jokic is that when Wilt was off the floor, his team actually saw a slight improvement in offensive efficiency. This was because they finally had multiple options to shoot and play a more balanced offense, rather than the game plan solely revolving around Wilt. Despite this, teams continued to rely heavily on Wilt due to his perception of his dominance. It wasn't until coach Alex Hannum pointed out the flaws in this approach that changes were made. On the other hand, with Jokic, the situation is basically the inverse. Jokic and his coach try to give the team opportunities to perform without him so that Jokic can rest, but the team ultimately falls short, showing a dramatic drop in efficiency. As we stated earlier, the Nuggets' offensive rating plunges from a 123 with Jokic on the floor to a mere 94 to 96 without him, highlighting their dire need for his presence. Even though removing Wilt and Jokic from the court had opposite effects on their respective teams' efficiency, both teams became overly reliant on their star player. This reliance led to a sense of complacency and an apathetic, indolent attitude to change, firmly convinced that this player would single-handedly carry them to victory, even if the numbers told a different story in inverse ways for these players. Their teams resigned to the one player, which ultimately made them dependent on them, reflecting a belief that this powerhouse would always lead them to success. Rusty Buckets also stated that things like injuries or the Wilt-Chamberlain paradox is very different nowadays compared to Wilt's era because nobody is playing 40 minutes per game anymore. And while that is true, it's important to add more context to it to make it comparable. Diving further, we can add some context that makes it comparable. Firstly, again, Jokic's usage rate is extraordinarily high. Still not the highest, but in the top 50s at 27.11 for his career, while Wilt's averages out to only about 25 for his career. Jokic's highest season is at 31.6, right around Wilt's 1963 season. Looking at Wilt's later seasons, he was still behind in minutes compared to players like Kareem and Oscar Robinson. Currently, Jokic is only behind Mikal Bridges, whose whole gimmick is playing as many minutes in games as possible. This means that while no one plays 40 minutes anymore, and the raw number of minutes per game may be lower, contextually, compared to the rest of the league, Jokic is still ranking near number 1 or at least in the top 3 for minutes per game, just as Wilt did in his era. Of course, another major difference is that Jokic has a three-point line, and also Jokic has much more playmaking and passing ability than Wilt does. But in order to dissect that, I instead want to dive into their personality styles. Beyond their on-court performance, both Jokic and Chamberlain had unique relationships with the media. Wilt was known for his larger-than-life personality and controversial statements, while Jokic's calm demeanor and humility have earned him a different kind of respect. Exploring how each player has handled media scrutiny and public perception reveals how these interactions have shaped their careers and legacies. Wilt loved to be the center of attention and craved media stardom, while Jokic is known for his quietness and deflection of the media and reporters. However, even though these two players have two very different personalities, again, it boils down to the same problem despite being two different sides of the spectrum. Just like how removing them from the court boiled down to the same problem despite being inverse relationships. The problem is, none of them are stepping up to be the leader needed for the team. Previously, I had talked about how Bill Russell was more of a team player and leader than Wilt because Wilt had the mentality that he was the best player and other teammates were failing him, and he did not work to better the team but instead focused on how he could capitalize on his popularity. Jokic takes the opposite approach. He recognizes the problems and how he can make the team better, but does not speak up, allowing the problems to continue in the same way. Jokic is known to be a playmaker with Magic Johnson level passing, something that Wilt was never known for, especially in comparison to players like Bill Russell or Oscar Robinson. However, the Nuggets have been failing at threes and scoring as noted in the previous sections. To make it worse, the league is not having the same problem. Despite not declining by very much, the Nuggets' three-point percentage that had previously had them at third their championship year now places them at only 7th this year. And in the same attitude of not addressing team problems openly, Jokic's response was instead to take the burden on himself and expand his game. He knew that defenders like to push him outside the paint as a center, and his team's three-point percentage was declining. So in 2 birds and 1 stone, Jokic increased his own three-point percentage from .359 to .489. That is the best three-point percentage for a player averaging more than 4 attempts a game. And let me remind you all that Jokic is a center. These types of numbers and approach to leadership have led to the expected stat padding accusations, to which Jokic has openly joked about in response. It's the exact same thing that Wilt took criticism for far before stat padding really had a term to it. Gilbert Arenas has a long podcast segment about Jokic and his lack of leadership as well, stating a similar point that if you don't take the responsibility to be a leader, then you are a bad leader. The original clip is over 30 minutes long, but I'll just play a few of the key moments to get the point across.
Everyone on a bad team can put up real good numbers, but before, in the last 30-some years, you didn't reward individual play. Mm-hmm. That individual play had to work inside of a team function. It had to
best player on the best team.
Relate to winning. It has to equal winning. What we've seen. We see every year. There's always some player that is on a bad team that's putting up what do they call them? Empty stats.
Empty. Yeah. Which is why the energy's where it's at. Hey man, what we doing?
So you think they need to just break the team up?
It's a couple of them dudes over there. I'm tired of Denver, man. I'm trying to go somewhere.
I mean, it's very telling you lose to that Wizard squad who literally everybody was running through.
Hey, you looking over there like, man, I'm tired of him. I'm tired of him never cracking down. I'm tired of the coach never saying this, nothing to him, saying it to me. It's a lot of I'm tired out there. I'm tired out there.
That'd be true with players.
And they don't never say nothing, but the energy never lie. The body language out there, you walking up and down the court like this.
That's true.
Again, man, you again, what you on today?
Yeah,
whatever.
All right, so chemistry issues. Let's take a look at a video from the Nuggets game Thursday against the Cavs. You'll see that Aaron Gordon tries to rally the team here after a foul. Aaron Gordon trying to bring the team together. We see it. Come here, let's talk about it.
Who he talking to?
Let's huddle.
Come here.
Let's huddle. Christian Brown, the youngsters came through.
Oh, all of them right there except for Jamal Murray he was talking to.
And MPJ, meanwhile, Joker on the bench.
He's like, man.
I'm tired of you, N-word.
They're going to make me call assassins.
I know. It did look like that.
I think him is American. He's fucking American.
North American.
Lazy
American. He's lazy fucking Americans.
Because on the court, you can hear everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We hear the fans up. Hear everything. So you hear, hey, yo. He keep going that way. He don't turn around.
Yeah.
No respect.
Ooh, that's disrespectful.
Yeah.
Let me holler at you at this timeout real quick.
And then you see Joker's body language on the bench.
Because he know what he's trying to do.
Or he looks like he tired.
What I just said, I'm tired. I'm tired of y'all. I need a new batch. Give me a new cup.
Give me
a new cup. I need a new cup. Let me pour this water in this cup because y'all.
It's leaking out.
This is leaking. There's some holes in this cup.
This is when we asked the question, since media likes to talk about who's leaders. Who's the leader of the Denver Nuggets?
It ain't Gordon. For sure, it's not Gordon.
We know who ain't the leader.
It don't look like anybody.
Yeah.
Because the leader on the bench, if he was on the bench, he's like, man, I don't want to say nothing to y'all either.
Yeah.
Because you can't be a leader and win a championship and then not be a leader now. Either
when you're not winning.
Or you either was a leader then and you were a leader now, or you was just never the leader. You were just a great player and y'all was playing. And you never really had that vocal guy.
So you're talking about vocal leader as opposed to I can be the leader on the court and go get you this 56 and 50.
No, don't try that, because when Kevin Durant don't speak and he goes out there and get buckets, he's not a leader. Right? So we want you to identify who the leader is of Denver Nuggets.
What if there is a leader though, but they don't like the leader no more?
Then who was the leader?
Then
Like
no
you
leader.
said, it's a vacant leader. There's a vacant.
So
Let's say
it-
there was a leader when they was winning,
No, then that's not.
and that
wasn't the
same leader don't want to be the leader no more.
leader. And it was never. a
Who
leader.
was that leader?
But that's the question. Who was the
Jamal
leader?
Murray?
Who was the leader when they were winning?
Jokic?
And I think that's part of the reason for them bringing in Westbrook and then Joker being so excited to play with Westbrook
Right.
because we know
Somebody can take the leadership.
he
role.
has those leadership qualities, and it's not about him, but it's about maximizing the team so guys can do what they're capable of. We heard about it in D.C. with Bradley Beal and that crew. We heard Ty Lue say it was the first time the Clippers had a leader.
You might have
in
to
the quiet
ask
PG era.
Calvin Booth, man, who the leader is, bro. Figure that out.
All right, so you got a team without a leader. So when shit is going down like this and somebody's trying to route them up, everybody's like,
I think
we don't
the
want to
leader-
hear that shit, man.
I think Joker-
You fucking up just like you just airball, goddammit.
Joker's the
Yeah.
leader. Joker's
Yeah.
definitely Joker's the leader that has to lead by example. He's the Tim Duncan. He's the guy that's not gonna say nothing, but he does the work on it. You see it. Yeah, I'm out here. I'm doing my thing. I play hard every night. I show up every night. The other guys gotta follow. Like when you talk about it, does it make you a good leader if a bad leader because the other guys don't want to follow you, or do it make them lazy? Because you doing things they don't want to do.
I mean, in reality, no one does nothing the leader does.
But play hard if they play hard.
Yeah,
if you go out there and you see him doing all the things like passing, cutting, and always tagging and touching and talking on defense, that's your best player out there showing you what you should be out there doing too, right?
Willing facility.
I don't have to tell you to go play hard. That's not what leaders do. Where the team is breaking up and you see the dismantling of two of your two second best players just rift in front of everybody. What's your response supposed to be?
You're supposed to bring them in.
Yeah,
You're supposed to do one
Not,
of these.
not
Yeah,
that.
Hold on.
Not that.
So-
it should have been more of a,
it
guys,
in.
come on, let's
All right.
go.
So if you're in that moment and this is a reoccurring thing, you've already done that. Come on, guys. Come on, guys. You see it again. How many times am I going to come on, guys?
Well, do you think he's really doing that?
Yeah.
No.
I think that was the tipping point. I think that was the, here we go with this shit again.
But you're not gonna do that.
I'm saying that the energy of the team is that they don't really fuck with each other and they're not responding to no leadership. Even if you say Westbrook replaces Jeff Green as the leader, he goes out there and he's trying to rally everybody up, he runs into the same thing he ran into with the fucking Lakers. What was that energy like?
That's
when
different.
Westbrook was trying to lead, but the leader didn't want him to lead.
Because the leader's trying to be led by another leader, that ain't working.
It ain't working. It ain't. That's what I'm saying. So Westbrook got to stand down. Now there's just a vacant slot where if I wanted to be the leader, I got to be more of a leader than Joker, if he's allowing me to. And no one's willing to take that chance. Because he got to approve of you being a leader now. He's the best player.
He just plays, man. Like, he's just like, we've been in the league. You've been on teams, right? Some players just aren't meant to lead. They're just meant to
Right.
do.
just wanna hoop.
And vote like,
Just,
like
you know what I mean?
I don't know if Jokic is that type of a leader.
He doesn't have a choice.
one you-
Leaders,
He
you don't
does have a choice.
No,
Like, he doesn't
Yes, he
have.
does.
He's not Giannis.
Best
Like
player.
just like
He does.
Embiid, right? You would think the way Embiid expresses himself to the media, you would think he was the leader. When we're sitting here, Maxie got to like, come on, man.
Show up
You know
on
what I
time,
mean? Like, it's just one of those things.
Yes.
Some
No,
guys are
that's
just-
so true.
He's the leader.
Who?
Every
not.
star, every best player is the leader by default.
No.
They
No.
choose to
No.
exhibit those qualities.
That's the problem.
Whether or
People
not
force
they,
them to be a leader.
you
Yeah.
can't.
They're the best player.
That's- but listen, by default they are. Whether you force them to or not, whether they say yes or they say no. When you say no, you still the leader, bro. You just now a bad leader because you don't want to be the leader.
No.
You're the best player.
No, that's not.
We
The
go
best
as you.
player is not necessarily
We
the leader.
go
Leader.
as you
No,
go.
you can't. You can't.
We go as
And
you
that's
go.
when people fail.
You can't.
Huh?
That's when people fail, when you're trying to force the best player to be a
It's
leader.
not, I'm not
That's
saying
not
you
them.
forcing anybody to do anything.
But it happens though.
You the leader
It
by
does.
default.
It
You're the
does.
best. You're the best player. If you don't want the leadership, you relinquish that to someone else. If there's no one else to relinquish that to, you are the leader by default, regardless if you like it or not. Period. You're the best player in the workplace or wherever you are. You do the best, man. You got to take the best player. You're the best player. You're crowned the best.
Yeah, but I also think
Was I a leader? No. I was just the best player on the team. I was the face. the guy who know how to talk, played,
And
leading.
it's possible.
No, I was rogue.
So we asked the chat, who is the Nuggets leader? 61% said Jokic. 18% said it's vacant right now, there is no leader. 6% said Jamal Murray. And 14% said other, without specifying who that other is.
See, I think it used to be, I think it used to be probably.
Feels like Jamal was a lot more.
It's feeling like Jamal was the leader before Jokic came into his own.
Well, even the fans confused on who the leader is.
Like, you know what's so funny?
They gave all of
This doesn't remind me of it, but this is when.
As Gilbert Arenas said, it's important to emphasize that being the best player on a team doesn't necessarily make someone the best leader. Leadership requires more than just outstanding performance. It demands the ability to inspire, guide, and uplift teammates. History is full of examples where the most talented player wasn't the most effective leader. For instance, Allen Iverson was one of the most electrifying players in NBA history, known for his incredible scoring ability and fearless play. However, his leadership skills were often questioned. Despite his talent, he struggled to elevate his team to sustain success. He came onto the 76ers already leading the team in points, so while he was the best performing player, he himself had a lot to learn as well, being that young. Similarly, Tracy McGrady was an offensive powerhouse during his prime, was often scrutinized. McGrady's teams frequently underperformed in playoffs, leading to questions about his ability to lead his teammates. Carmelo Anthony is another example. Melo's scoring prowess made him one of the league's top players, but his leadership and team success didn't always align to his individual brilliance. His tenure with the New York Knicks, for instance, was marked by underachievement despite his impressive stats. Jokic's calm demeanor and unassuming personality, while endearing and humble, can sometimes hinder his ability to take on a more assertive leadership role. Unlike Wilt, who thrived in the spotlight and made bold statements, Jokic tends to shy away from the media and prefers to let his game do the talking. This approach, while again humble, can also lead to the lack of vocal leadership that the team might need to improve. Ultimately, the legacies of both Wilt Chamberlain and Jokic, and any team for that matter, is going to be dependent on how their individual success leads to team victory. The Wilt curse shows that even the most outstanding individual performances can be overshadowed by a lack of team success. Reflecting on how this dynamic has affected Jokic's legacy so far, we can speculate on what the future holds for him in the Denver Nuggets. Will Jokic be remembered as a statistical marvel with a cursed legacy, or can he break free from the historical pattern? Either way, Jokic seems doomed. Damn if he does, damned if he doesn't. Because NBA fans and the media often put a negative spin on everything. This phenomenon isn't new. Wilt Chamberlain faced similar criticisms regardless of his performance. Again, Rusty Buckets dives into this with the Wilt paradox, where a player needs to score less and have a lower usage rating to help the team win. But to the outside world, it looks like they're out of their prime. Conversely, scoring more puts them at an all-time level with historic numbers, but then they get criticized when the team is losing. In one particularly memorable game, the Lakers won despite Wilt finishing with just 18 rebounds, 9 assists, and 1 singular point. Critics hammered Wilt for not scoring more despite the victory. Wilt lashed out, pointing out this double standard again. When he was known for his high-scoring performances, he was labeled as selfish. But now, when he helped his team win by focusing on other aspects of the game, he was criticized for not scoring enough. This double standard parallels the current criticism Jokic faces, and the complexities of being an all-time great on a struggling team. Once again, the Wilt paradox. Again, the criticisms led to a division on the player's image. Fans will say that Jokic needs help, while haters will claim that he's just stat padding. It's a no-win situation. Just like Wilt, LeBron, and many other greats, even if you are phenomenal and among some of the best ever, it will be diminished if, at the end of the day, you aren't winning games. And so, if the Nuggets don't step it up, it will unfortunately start to erode Jokic's legendary stretch until he's no longer in the conversation. On the flip side, if Jokic's team starts to perform exceptionally well and he reduces his individual numbers to facilitate team success, he might still face criticism. Just like Wilt, who was attacked for not scoring enough even when his team won, Jokic will be viewed as out of his prime if his stats decline. This paradox places him in a difficult position, where if he prioritizes team success over individual numbers, he might lose the recognition as one of the greatest players. But if he focuses on his statistical dominance, critics will blame him for his team failures. This harsh reality underscores the importance of team success in solidifying a player's legacy. No matter how incredible their individual stats are, the narrative often shifts to their inability to quote-unquote carry the team to victory. This unfair judgment creates a legacy that is as much about what wasn't achieved as it is about what was. For Jokic, that means that despite being a generational talent with astounding numbers, the lasting memory will hinge on his ability to translate brilliant performance into championships. In the end, the relentless scrutiny from fans and media serves as a stark reminder. Individual greatness in the NBA is perpetually at the mercy of team success. Without the support of a cohesive team, even the most extraordinary players face an uphill battle to cement their place in the annals of basketball history. For Jokic, the time is now for the Nuggets to build a roster that can complement his talents and chase more victories. Otherwise, history might repeat itself, and another all-time great will be remembered for what could have been rather than what was. And that is why Nikola Jokic is facing the modern-day Wilt problem. If you guys enjoyed this video and like a bit more of face cam in it, just like Rusty Buckets or some others, let me know down in the comments, as I know it's a bit of a change, but I like being on camera more with you guys in order to connect. We just recently hit 10K subscribers, and I really do appreciate it. My goal for this year, going into 2025, ironically enough, is to hit 25K subscribers. So I would really appreciate it if you guys liked, subscribed, shared the video around, all that good stuff, as it does help me out and help grows the channel. And with all that said, hopefully I will see you all in the next one. Peace out.
This is not okay. This needs to stop now.